Ready to go. Back with another episode, guys. I think we missed last week. I told Mosiah, our content producer, I'm like, hey, we just need a mental break. We need serenity now. We need a mental health week to just adjust to all these things and get ready. And we'd been talking a lot about some of the changes and a lot of negativity in the industry, and so we just needed to take a beat. But we're back. I'd like to say we have some positive. Actually, we have lots of positive news, but also lots of potentially not positive news as well. We're going to talk today about the current state of ACA and the subsidies. Our government is currently shut down, and this has become the main talking point for it. And we're going to talk a little bit about ACA. So we've got maybe one of the smartest, best guys in the ACA space in the industry currently, Jeff Gaston, our EVP. Jeff, you're common guest on the show. We'll get to you here in just a minute. But I wanted to say today we're 36 hours into AEP. It's the 16th of October. We had it kick off yesterday, and great news. We as a company, it looks like we're trending to be up 50% year over year as far as like total enrollments, volume, and it's great. So that's some great positive news for us. Now, a lot of times we're talking about, industry news and things on the broader scale, and a lot of it can be construed as negative. We are still doing very well. And I don't mean that to, brag necessarily, but it's a testament of the result of the hard work of our team year over year. And, AEP is really kind of when you find out how everything you did the year leading up to it lead up to annual enrollment. And so it's just nice to have that initial testament that, yes, everything that we've done, everything that we've been building and growing towards pays off. So it's very similar on the ACA side. Let me give you guys some early observations from AEP. Maybe we could change as we're only, 36 hours into it, but I think Humana is absolutely crushing it.
Absolutely.
Humana, as far as like who wins AEP, it's very safe to say I think Humana is going to win AEP as far as like total growth. Now, let's hope that it's growth that they want, and let's hope it's growth that they can sustain, and that we're not seeing, plans suppressed and going non-commissionable all over right away. But I think they are very well positioned. We are absolutely killing it with our Humana numbers. The other thing I'm noticing, we're seeing a big pop with Aetna. And nationwide, Aetna seems to be doing well, which is interesting. If you look at, 2 years ago, Humana and Aetna were kind of the first to have big blocks of SARs and take it on the chin with their stock price and have a lot of major adjustments and take a lot of heat. So it seems like they may have been a little bit further along the course correction, and maybe they're now, going to be benefiting from that. So hopefully that's the case. Another interesting thing, I'm seeing Devoted up pretty substantially. Maybe that's just, agent boost ecosystem, but Devoted's up. They'd actually expanded to our home market too here in Utah, so that's helped them. I'm seeing and I'm hearing online, United, as far as like proportion overall of sales, seems to be less than it's normally been, which I think they're fine with. I think that was kind of like their market moves. So lot of people out there. This AEP seems to be very chaotic. Agents and people are very, very, very confused. There's still a lot of questions that are normally solved by now that are getting asked every day. Our agents are talking to beneficiaries who think their plan is fine. They're unaware that it's going to be eliminated or SAR'd at the end of the year. And, sometimes they think their plan's going to be eliminated or SAR'd and they heard some bad information. So all sorts of, fun musical chairs going on all over the industry right now. Jeff, any AEP Medicare thoughts before we transition into?
Yeah, just keep going. You got 15 days before ACA open enrollment starts, and then you're just going to be hecked with more clients, more people needing things, and you're going to have to make multiple changes. It's a very difficult year. You've got a lot of plans that you're having to move people off because, they've left the area or they're just a straight up SAR. the Medicare world, it's a very tough situation. But I will say this, I think 2027 on both sides of the product are going to get better, and it's just a year where you just got to stick with it. And we've seen this before and in the past, and agents and brokers have always come out on the right side of it.
Yeah, there's a couple other things that we, maybe we'll just address real quickly. Dan and I were going to talk about this last week with the Medicare stuff, but we just didn't put anything on film. Humana announced that they were not going to be paying any agents, or basically not allowing agents to enroll people in PDPs as of November 8th. And so now, until then, agents can submit enrollments, but as of that, they're not even going to allow agents to enroll people in PDPs. And, while I just gave Humana a major shout out on, at least for us, that we're killing it on the Advantage side of things, it's just one of those things where it's just a bad precedence, and it seems like this year, every time a carrier takes a step, whether it's SARing plans, reducing agent comp, changing agent comp, suppressing plans, changing old commissions, it just emboldens all the other carriers to do more and more and more. And so I'd kind of, crafted a most recent list of a lot of these egregious changes that these insurance carriers are making. And I just wanted to address it with like the ending of and not having agents do it, because it's just a really bad precedent. It's one of those things where you go, what's the wisdom in changing that? I mean, as an agent, I always hated doing PDPs because the commission was always extremely low. You did it basically doing a service for the clients already because they need it. It's very complicated. And if you're placing them on a supplement, or sometimes you weren't, I almost felt like I was doing it out of the goodness of my heart, even when I was getting paid, because the compensation on it just wasn't anywhere commensurate to the amount of time, effort, energy it takes to renew those people every year. And then now to just be like, we're just not even going to allow agents to do it. I think it just puts so much back. And a lot of these carriers are just going, well, I guess the seniors can just figure out a way, right? Like, we're not going to pay for concierge support. We're not going to pay for a broker to help you do it. We're going to pay no commission on it. And if that means you've got to stumble around the internet and try to read it and figure it out, or call into our call center, so be it. That's the way we're doing it. And I just think that it's a really bad precedence, and a lot of these other carriers, they keep going like one little step further, and you think like, okay, they've got it out. We know the SARs, we know the plans that are non-commissionable and suppressed, but it's like every week they come out with another update. We're like, and this, and this too, and now we're gonna charge you $1.50 for kits, and now we're not gonna do this, and now this, and we're gonna change this too, and United recently came out and they said they were cutting renewals on some of the vested policies in Advantage plans in Washington's. Those are like uncharted waters before. Those are like sacred lines that have never before been crossed, and they've done that. Care First Blue Cross came out and said, we're going to cut renewal comp too on vested policies. And you're going, that's like, okay, you're cutting off my future opportunity, but now you're stealing money that I'd already earned and that basically you committed. And there's, in my opinion, a legal, ethical, and fiduciary responsibility for those carriers to keep those commitments going. Those kind of seem like sacred lines that you can't cross, that have been crossed recently. And then, Care First kind of stepped that back, and I think they got a lot of pushback, and they decided to restore that, and we've just never seen these things before. We've never seen them. And it's almost like, well, did you hear what this carrier's doing? Well, then, yeah, we can do this too. Mm-hmm. And they're compounding all of these cost-cutting measures and savings. And, we, at the end of the day, agents and the brokers go, like we've been saying for 2 years now, how are we in this situation where we're the ones that are identified as the ones where we get all the comp taken out of our ecosystem, right? When there's, billions and trillions of dollars of other ways, areas, and things to cut that are more cost-saving measures and things like that. But, really where we're at is it's the carriers don't necessarily want the business, or they only want it under a, predefined set of circumstances. And, with United even, They've done a couple other things that really kind of irked some agents and uplines too, sending out, there were these benchmark plans where if these LIS or members that were over a benchmark plan, they were going to be sending out letters to all these LIS clients and telling them that they, offering them to move them to a plan with a lower or no premium, and that the agent would remain agent of record. However, but, a lot of those plans are non-commissionable, so it's like, how is that, that's not doing the agent any favors, and that's causing confusion. I'd heard they'd sent out letters to all the supplement members too, saying, advising them of an advantage plan, referencing their agent as agent of record. But of course, as we all know, if your client calls in to the call center and a telesales agent enrolls them, you're not going to get paid a commission on it, right? They're generally not retaining you agent of record. And so there's just these little things, these steps further that the carriers keep doing, and we're finding out day by day, week by week, that are really frustrating, right? And, it's with some of these insurance carriers, I get it, right? Like everybody's all in on getting back to profitability. And now where we're at the table set for AEP, and you think that you have a good plan, and then, the cheese keeps moving, so to say, or you have another little variable in there that you got to keep working with. And so it's making it really difficult this year. And so it's funny now that the carriers have done all of their, they've gamed all of the things that they can game. And then they come to you and they're like, well, and here's your goals, or like, how many are you going to write? It's like, dude, you just like eliminated a good portion of my business. You just told me like all these areas that I write business in aren't commissionable. You just did this, this, and this. And now you're wanting all these numbers in the areas in the way that you want them, and it's just really, it can be frustrating. So overall, there's one or two things that we can do with that as a company, right? We can complain about it. We can hold grudges. We can be upset, or, we can just do the best with what we can right now. And that's what we're doing, is we're just, playing ball with our carriers. We do have those that are still great partners that we want to do work with. And you can kind of understand like, hey, this is the business reality is there are certain areas and subsects of the business that they don't want to grow right now in these particular areas, but here are the areas where they want to grow and where the plans are good. Let's focus the time, attention, and growth right there. And I think, we're threading that needle pretty well as a company. And I just hope that some of these carriers that are gaining the business can really take it. Kind of some final observations for AEP before we shift into what we want to, really talk about with the ACA subsidies and things is I'm also seeing some of these small carriers in regional areas where they're viewing this as their moment, right? This is they're popping off. They're getting all these enrollments. The market conditions have lined up to where they're the golden product in the area, and they are taking on more business than they ever thought imaginable or they ever dreamed of. And I just have a hard time believing that they're going to be well positioned for these small carriers to be able to wrap their arms around that business and process it in a really good way. There's, don't want to call it anybody in particular, but there are some smaller regional carriers who basically doubled or quadrupled their total membership on the first day or two of AEP this year. And you go, well, you kind of operated like this with, this amount of members, and now you're going to end up with 10x that. Are you really able to sustain all those lives in that new growth this year? There's some other rural areas too where, they're not working. They don't pay FMOs commissions, but they're like, I guess we'll take that business if you want to throw it our way. And we're kind of going, no, thanks. I guess we'll just, we'll let you and the consumers figure it out, and we'll go work in the areas where there's opportunities. So, final thoughts there, guys. If you're an agent and you were, I guess I'd say, the victim of circumstances that you weren't in control of, whether your area or your carriers or your alignment in one of these states where things just ended up being worse than others, I would make sure that you just take our advice and that you become a diverse, dynamic, flexible agent, right?
Absolutely.
And that means you're a qualified professional, an educated professional. You sell multiple carriers, probably in multiple states. You're doing Medicare, you're doing ACA, you're doing ancillary, you're doing life, and you can kind of survive these ebbs and flows of the industry. And I've seen it's happening, right? Like when Dr. Oz got into, we talked about it on the podcast, he said there's too many agents in the ecosystem.
Yep.
There has been a lot of agents flushed out of the ecosystem this year, both on the Medicare and ACA side, a lot of agents. And I still think that's good. You know, like our main goal, we're always trying to recruit and bring on agents and grow that way. I always tell us that, you know, our business is very simple. We bring on more agents and we write more policies. That's what we do that's our core business. Bring on more agents, teach them, train them, write more policies. Very simple. And we're still growing and attracting a lot of great agents out there, but I'm definitely seeing the pool is smaller. There's a lot of agents that were, you know, not able to adapt with some of the changes. They're just out of the ecosystem right now. We're seeing the same thing on the ACA side, and we're seeing panic. We're seeing some agents that, you know, have just we were joking. I don't know if it was you we were joking about, but how many people are selling their books of business online right now? I was just thinking that
actually.
Yeah. You know, it's like you go read some of these Facebook groups and forums and things like that, and you're like, hey, I'm selling my book of business. And you're like, oh, you don't say, huh? You're selling that block of business that 80% of them are being SAR'd this year, huh? What do you want for it? You know,
would you want 2 month
yeah,
multiple? That's what we were joking about.
2 month multiple on that. And it's just funny that some of those agents didn't have a contingency plan, and they're wanting to get out.
I had no idea till a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, and again, same thing. There's a lot of agents that stick their head in the sands year round, and then they pop out after, you know, sometime in the fall, and they're like, huh, there's a lot going on this year. There's a lot of changes that I haven't really been paying attention to. So, and then they're like, you know, I don't know that I'm in for it this year. I think I'm going to pack it in. So, yeah, there's kind of, again, if you're a good agent, if you're with the right partner, if you're a good company out there, it doesn't matter when there's challenges in the marketplace. If anything, it makes it better and easier for you. And we are poised to do very, very well on the Medicare side of things. I think we're up 50% year over year, and we've been up 40 to 50% year over year every year for the past 6 years. Through COVID, through all the difficulties, through both administrations, through all the changes, through all the turmoil. And not only that, and here's my segue into this, but we're also growing in ACA tremendously right now. And Agent Boost, we are growing month over month, every month, even right now, with things being as chaotic as they are. And a lot of that is due to Jeff and the great work that he's been doing in our company. And we basically, when we saw a lot of the challenges going on early last year and a lot of the fraud, waste, and abuse, we took a step back and said, hold on, this is not a sustainable business model for anybody. And we need to take it down to the studs, build it back from a, you know, healthy perspective, brick by brick. And we started doing that. And, you know, we took it on the chin a little bit with some of the carriers and Health Sherpa and some of these people thinking that, you know, we'd basically fallen off. Mm-hmm. And as time went on, it was like, okay, you guys, you did it right. You know, and we're one of the entities in the country that's growing very quickly.
There's only a couple of us in the country that are putting up these type of numbers too.
Yep, growing, attracting great partners. And that's thanks, you know, a lot of work to what you're doing, Jeff. Jeff's been on the road, literally flying all over the country, training agents and agencies and partners for the past few months, going to carrier rollouts and making deals. And it's been really great for us in the business overall. So we're really optimistic about everything, right? Especially ACA. But now we're in day 16. I think today is day 16 of the government shutdown. And the major talking point, as luck would have it for all of us in this industry, are ACA subsidies. You know, that it's one of those things where, like, you see a car crash coming from a far away, and you're like, this is going to happen. And we've been talking about this since the administration changed, right? Yeah. Where you're like, well, what are we going to do about the subsidies? this is a problem that's going to happen in the future. And you're like, it's going to be a problem, and it's a problem. And now the government shut down over it. And Democrats and Republicans are arguing and pointing fingers. And here we are, 2 weeks away from OE?
Yeah. And we
don't
can't
know
window shop. We can't do anything
Yeah.
because nothing's done
So
at this point.
why don't you fill us in kind of on like, the latest with the government shutdown and the subsidies, and kind of like summarize the heart of the issue there.
Yeah, so right now, the government shutdown, the Democrats will not budge until subsidies are fully renewed. They've also got some expanded Medicaid that they're wanting to add into there. But realistically, what they are wanting is to go back to what happened during the COVID build with the subsidies. It was way overfunded. It was like, hey, you get a free car, you get a free car. That's not what insurance is. And I see why the Republicans aren't budging on it. But right now, I think they've gotten further apart in these 16 days than they were 2 weeks ago. I don't see the government coming to any resolution anytime soon with it. We kind of got this indication when we went back to D.C. last June. We were told by Republican senators, hey, don't expect anything till the earliest late November. We still kind of are seeing that. But we also heard the same thing out of Democrat senators. They were thinking kind of the same thing, but this government shutdown gave them an opportunity to possibly sneak this into a bill. But hey, both sides don't like each other a lot, and they're just in a complete gridlock right now. And we think that there will be something done. Republicans are saying, hey, if we can come out of a government shutdown, they will talk about expanding subsidies. But Democrats are saying, well, they only want to do that for 1 year. Well, 1 year doesn't really solve anything. And if I'm a Republican right now, I'm going, well, that's not what I want, because what's 1 year from now?
Yeah,
Midterms. And that's the last thing you want, is to give the other side fuel to the fire that they can go and talk to their base about. So realistically, Republicans need to come a little bit more to the table, and the Democrats need to come back on a little bit of it, and hopefully they can come to a resolution. They're going to come to one, but it's, hey, are we going to make all these government employees suffer, shut down the whole government over this, or can we get through things? I mean, for example, our large agency called CMS. It was canceled because they're in a government shutdown. There's nothing going on right now, and the whole country's hurting, let alone our GDP. I saw a statistic on how much money we're losing per day with it. It's just overall bad for the entire economy. So something needs to happen. And I got to say, I don't see anything happening anytime soon. And I'm a little bit nervous right now. If this goes into November 1st, I don't have a lot of answers for people.
Yeah. I mean, we were talking about it at lunch. Look, whether you're Republican or Democrat, whenever the government shuts down, any rational, normal American just thinks how stupid and inefficient our government is, right? Like, it's so annoying the times, and then all they both do is sit and point fingers about it's your fault. Meanwhile, all they're going to do is come to an agreement where they're both going to agree to raise the debt ceiling and spend more money and keep the government open and kick the can down the road later, right? Yep. That's what's going to happen. And you mentioned that the divisions are worse and worse and worse. And you even have, Republicans and even conservatives that are starting to kind of, break and have differing opinions on it. Because, look, the reality of the situation is ACA, aka Obamacare, has become a political flashpoint. It's become one of those talking points in the country, like immigration and abortion and voting, and where it's just this so polarizing, it's one side or the other, right? You're either for it or you're against it. And the reality is during, Obamacare's been around for a long time. It's become the mechanism where a lot of people get health care. I don't think the average person in America really gives a crap what politician came up with the building blocks or the foundation of it, whether it be Medicare or ACA or whatever. They just go, I just want a reasonable way to pay for my doctors. And if we have an insurance system in here, I want it to be reasonably affordable. And when I go to the doctor, I want to be able to get coverage.
Yeah, I want to be able to provide my kids with care.
Exactly. That's literally all anybody cares about. I don't care what side of the aisle you're on. And, it's the kind of the division is, and the talking points are, Democrats say that it's not about, providing health care to people that shouldn't qualify for it, who are illegal or immigration status or DACA or whatever, or fraudulent policies and things like that. Republicans are, on their side of it saying, nope, we're not going to give it to people who shouldn't qualify for it, who are here illegally or who are fraudulent. There's so much fraud, waste, and abuse in it. It's too expensive. It's not affordable. Okay, well, what's the alternative? Right. You know what I mean? Like, so let's say it's disappeared. Well, then what's the alternative? What if people go back to the private marketplace and the insurance is still expensive, no matter how you cover
What happens
it, right?
to pre-existing conditions?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's another thing. Again, how nobody wants to ever be denied to be able to get insurance that we have to for any sort of pre-existing condition. That was just a dumb thing that ever was a thing in our country, right? And so Democrats argue, well, if we don't extend these subsidies in the exact way, shape, and form that they were before, then it's going to force all these millions of people on to having no insurance or getting junk insurance, because that became the coin term during the Biden administration was, these short-term plans and things like that, or the ministries or the health exchanges were junk insurance, or people just go without and then they get, can go bankrupt or getting payday loans or whatever it is that they argue it. Now, a couple of interesting things that we always talk about is statistically, according to the Kaiser Family Foundation, KFF. Now, I generally think Kaiser does a really good job of verifying all their information, but their statistics that they published on October 5th say that 77% of people who are getting subsidies reside in states that voted for President Trump in 2024. Yep. And so we know that to be true with a lot of these FFM states. A lot of that FFM growth over the past 3 years came in Florida and Georgia and Texas, North Carolina. A lot of that growth was in those areas, right? Now, those states all went red for Trump and Republicans in the last election. And so, this political football that's getting punted back and forth is, well, you might think that Republicans are standing up for, affordable health care against the ACA, but the Democrats are saying, well, I don't know, you better look at this because a lot of the people that are getting on those subsidies and that are actually reside in states that you won or that you're wanting to win. And so you have this midterm election component coming into play, and there's just a lot of, we go, what's to win, right? Like, that's the biggest thing that frustrates me about politics in general is I go, what are the Democrats getting out of this right now? What are the Republicans getting out of it? You seem to both lose, right?
Oh, I think this is a losing topic for both sides of the aisle.
So it's like, let's just get it open. Let's just, agree to some sort of subsidies so we can figure out a way. If we're going to off-ramp this, there has to be an off-ramp in a sustainable, affordable way. You can't just go, there's no plan. We're going to, repeal and replace that we've heard since 2012. Well, repeal and replace with what? It's all great to say, those terms and things like that, but you have to have a better plan. And where it's at right now is health insurance, health care is unaffordable for every American. We all know that. It's in a bad place. And so we have to have some way. And if, the average American's out there sitting there going, well, wait, we can't find a way for me I don't really feel like paying taxes and paying a few $100s is affordable insurance necessarily, but it's certainly not affordable if my premium's $1,500 or $2,000 for a family. And we can't figure out a way to make healthcare in this country work or be subsidized or be affordable, but we can send billions of dollars overseas for, various things all the time forever, That is maddening for the average American. And again, I don't care if you're Republican or Democrat to go, I can't get affordable health insurance. You're going to see premiums go to $2,500 for your family. Meanwhile, I'm going to send this care package of $60 billion to this other country for bombs. And
both sides of the aisle, they both send money over there. So they try to blame each other. No, you look at it, both sides are sending it.
So, it's in a really frustrating place right now. And when the government first shut down, I was like, it'll probably be like,
a day or two,
4 or 5 days, and they'll come to their senses. And now I go, yeah, who knows what's going to break this free? You know, there's got to be some sort of, it'll probably be coming on the heels of OE jumping off, and people will be starting to see what their rates are going to be without any subsidized premiums. And I think maybe that pressure on their politicians will cause some sort of action. I don't know. What do you think?
I mean, we've heard from the Speaker of the House. We've heard from the minority leaders. And you know what I have to say? I just don't think these politicians are educated in the healthcare system at all. One of them was talking, and they're going, well, it doesn't really matter because the subsidies don't expire till the end of the year. And then the reporter even goes to him and goes, yeah, but they start enrolling on November 1st. And they just don't have any idea of what's even going on. So how can you enroll into a plan and you don't know how much you're going to have to pay for it? You know, if you have any subsidy at all, you have no idea what you're going to qualify for. If you're someone who's never had a subsidy, I guess it's going to be okay because you're going to know exactly what price you're going to be. That's less than 10% of the enrollments on ACA. They're going to run into that situation. So I think it comes down to this is a talking point, but there is zero politicians out there, maybe one or two, that actually know what they're talking about when it comes to health insurance. And quite frankly, they're ruining it. Where you see rollbacks and SEPs, and it doesn't matter if this is on the Medicare or ACA side, they don't realize there's only so many brokers out there who can help enroll people, and they like to put it all in the holiday season with open enrollment. And you have both products going at the same time. Who even knows what OEP looks like for Medicare this coming year onto it? And there's just not enough time for brokers to do anything. This year, you can't even window shop with ACA. Right now, you should be able to look at how much a plan's going to cost. You have 1 million members coming off of Aetna right now through 17 states. You can't even look at what the new plan's going to cost you. If you're trying to move them to United Healthcare, Oscar, or an Ambetter like that, you have no idea what the price is going to be. You kind of know where the hospital network and everything is, but you have absolutely no idea. Is this plan going to be $800? Going to be $1,600? Or is it going to be $5? There's no way to know. And the reason all this is happening because of our politicians in Washington, D.C. Nothing else. It's just on them.
Yeah, there are facts, if on the Republican side of things, like, and even we've seen it, right? Like being in the industry, look, we all know, for example, the AOR thing just got out of control with
absolutely,
and we all know that there were people getting forced onto plans that were not alive, shouldn't qualify.
6.4 million people, Paragon Health came out with a study saying were fraudulently enrolled last year.
So, according to Paragon Health, which I generally think they're pretty good, they are 6.4 million people fraudulently enrolled. Okay, now you may be going, that seems way too staggering of a number to have fraudulent enrolled. But if you've been in this industry at scale, you go, yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah, about 25%.
Because what you've seen is you saw a lot of at where, money goes, attention flows, or vice versa. And you saw this appetite of the prior administration wanting to swell the rolls of Obama administration and the subsidies, creating this perfect ecosystem where they weren't paying anything, right? So they're $0, you can enroll somebody. And we have seen from lawsuits and our own experience working with clients that have been screwed and just knowing people in the industry that there were massive entities and agencies and corrupt. I don't even want to call them insurance agencies because they weren't really in the space and they're not in the space anymore, but they found this like opportunity where they could exploit these fraudulent things. They were doing things like buying mortgage insurance leads, mortgage protection leads, and where they just had names, date of births, and they would go in and be like, oh, you have a plan. Apparently, I'm your agent now, know?
I just took care of you.
And fraudulently enroll them in a plan, right, that has tax impacts potentially on those people. They don't know. Maybe they had another plan. And then what kind of evolved was you had millions of people that were enrolled there. And then you did have a lot of people. I think it's pretty politically safe to say that there were millions of people coming into the country illegally, and they were able to get ITINs, and they were able to get insurance. They would go and get their numbers, and they were able to be enrolled in these ACA plans. Whether you agree with that or not, or think that's valid or justified or not, that was happening at scale. And it got even worse because you had people that were coming across that didn't even care or want insurance, and people were just enrolling them, right? So you have you have all of these call them ghost policies, essentially, where and that's how you get to a number up to 6.4 million fraudulent policies. Is you go, people are just enrolling people that have no idea that someone's put them on a plan. You're enrolling people that shouldn't qualify or don't even care that they're on a plan in general, but because somebody was getting some sort of economic impact on it, that's what was happening. And Republicans are saying, well, the carriers knew and they benefit and they were collecting premium subsidies. They were becoming, welfare queens from the state because they were getting, paid or reimbursed on all these policies, whether or not they were actual real lives or not. And the carriers are going, this has just been chaos. And we just want to get back to, knowing business and having good actual policies and implementing healthcare. Right. So then you have the whole Medicaid component.
Yeah,
to this.
2.8 million people CMS just put out were enrolled in an ACA plan and Medicaid at the exact same time, which, as you know, you can't be on both plans.
So if you're doing
that's on top of the 6.4 million we just talked about.
So again, the numbers that we've been, sticking our finger into the wind over the past 6 months, you add that together, and that's about 8 to 9 million people, which is pretty consistently what we've been saying on this podcast of people that should not or would not or don't need to be on the ACA plan, right? So those are either not real policies or people that shouldn't qualify. So you've got to come to some sort of meeting of the minds of who should be qualified, how do you get them on it, how do you verify it, how do you get paid? And I think subsidies in some way, shape, or form need to happen because until I don't know of a way, if I did, I'd guess I'd be the smartest man in the country and maybe I'd be, president or whatever, but I don't know of a way to instantly make our healthcare affordable in this country. It's got to be a systematic improvement there. But in the short term, there is no way that we can change healthcare affordability. So you got to find a way to be able to cover Americans and give them some sort of affordable, good insurance in a way that's sustainable for both sides of the aisle.
Absolutely.
Right?
Well, kind of what you just said right there. Okay, so let's say subsidies don't get renewed. Who's going to leave the marketplace? It's going to be healthy individuals, and you're going to see people in their young 20s and 30s who never go to the doctor. Well, guess what just happened to your whole risk pool on ACA? Yep. It's going to go through the roof because the people who are going to stay and pay those high premiums are people who are extremely unhealthy. They're causing the system an extreme amount of money, and it's just going to make it worse. So that's why we both believe that subsidies need to be done. Yes, they don't need to be done to the levels that they were in COVID, but they absolutely need to be very much expanded as well, especially with CSRs going away. That's another thing. Silver plans are going to be almost non-existent in 2026, and every single carrier out there has been pushing silver plans and CSRs for the last 2 years. They've even had bonus structures attached to it. They're almost non-existent.
Talk a little bit more about that, why silver plans are going away and what CSRs are and how they...
Yeah, so it's cost savings reduction in a plan. So essentially what it is eliminating those high deductibles. So rather than you having a $7,000 deductible, it's bringing it down into about $1,000 range for your family. What it is allowing you to have affordable health insurance. So the silver plans were almost equal to what a bronze plan was costing, but it was allowing you to have very low deductibles, or in some cases there was zero deductible. We had a plan like that here in Utah that was a $0 cost. Essentially what it's doing is making the plan affordable for a family. Mm-hmm. But coming into this year where those plans are going to be pretty much gone, you're going to see, I would say probably 70+% of enrollments are all going to be on bronze plans. You're going to have high deductibles. You're going to have $7,000, $8,000 deductible. Is that really health insurance at that point? That's where people are kind of going. You're almost in catastrophic territory. Well, guess what? HSA plans are now eligible for bronze plans across the board. Catastrophic, right? Yeah. So it's all lining up. Everyone's seen it coming. I will say, though, I think the HSA option for bronze plans, for ACA plans, is huge. Because if you don't understand an HSA plan at all, it lowers down your tax amount. So you're going to be able to lower it down, put yourself into different tax brackets, different core, where you can qualify for possibly more subsidies if they get renewed. So that is one big thing. But the reason they're there is because these bronze plans are going to change it for families where, hey, this isn't as affordable as what it was before. If I'm paying $800 a month, but I still have an $8,000 deductible that I have to hit, it's kind of tough for people to justify having that insurance.
I'm sitting here thinking, I'm going, as an American family here, you look at housing affordability and healthcare right now, and you just go, these are generally most families' largest expenses. And I just go, there has to be a way to lower the cost and the strain on the average American in those two areas. Otherwise, we're in for some big trouble, right?
I mean, 39% of Americans right now who are on an ACA plan are on a zero premium. They're not paying $1.
Well, and then we have good insurance, quote unquote, good insurance. Yeah. I'm like, mine's expensive. I pay $900 a month.
We were just talking about that. It's about $1,000 a month.
And then I still have co-payments and deductibles. And I'm like, well, I guess affordability is relative, but in health insurance and cost of medical care in this country is just catastrophic right now. And we're feeling it on the Medicare side. We've been talking about it for 2 years. Same thing on the ACA side, and just anywhere and everywhere there's pressure. And, you compound that with housing unaffordability, and just it really feels dire out there right now, and it doesn't feel like it's getting better. And I don't really care who's in office. I don't really care what political affiliation. It's the same both ways, right? Both parties have not solved it and contributed to a continual increase. And you've got housing being more affordable than it's ever been. Same thing with food, same thing with health insurance. And every single person in the country is feeling it. And so I really hope that we just get some sort of clarification, and there has to be, I'm hopeful with this current, CMS administration. It seems like they say the right things and are willing to listen, but it's like, at what point do we start seeing changes in a positive direction where we start feeling some relief? And I think that, as an industry in general, we really need to start seeing that, very soon, end of Q4, beginning of Q1 next year, or people are going to get really frustrated. Yeah. And I especially think that if this like we've been talking about, continues on into the midterms, some of the Republicans are going to be in for a surprise when they realize that, it turns out, red-blooded Republicans in deep red states also want affordable health insurance, and you haven't done crap to fix it.
Well, they'll lose the young population that President Trump just won in the last election. They'll completely flip, because are they going to go, hey, do I have to pay a house payment for my health insurance where I still can't have a house right now? It's just a tough world that you're in right now, so they've got to get it figured out.
Well, and according to the analytics, mostly, because most kids, I'll call them kids under 26, are still on their, their parents' health insurance, or they're able to get, they're able to stay on that till they're 26. But young adults, 26 to 35, are the most. Yeah. The millennials are the most affected by this. And it's like, well, yeah, they can't afford $800, $1,200 for a couple, or, $700.
Sometimes a single person. Yeah.
For a single person. It's just, and, we're going to see people going back to just going without, And so what do you think happens if we don't have any sort of renewed subsidies on November 1st?
I think we'll have a special election period in March. It'll be practically like another open enrollment. And I think that'll be actually a great thing for brokers out there who are listening to this. It'll be like the gold rush of 49 all over again. But I don't see another way without them doing a special election period for the path that we're on right now. There's going to have to be, and I'm now starting to hear that talk. I know I talked about that on a podcast a couple months ago. I'm now starting to hear that in the industry where everyone's starting to talk about it. We're going to go into November 1st. I can tell you right now, because it's probably not going to be there, where there's subsidies aren't going to be priced in, and we're going to have to do hard work. You're going to see a lot of brokers leave the industry, but brokers who are staying in the industry, and you're educating yourself, if you're watching this podcast, you're educating yourself, you're going to do great through this. I expect you're going to come out of this on top, and moving through 26 into 27, you're going to be a top broker going through. I keep telling everyone, it was funny, we were at the Ambita rollout, and Carrie Class goes, put on your running shoes, because we're running to 27. And I was like, hey, that's a great term right there. It really is. We're just having to stay and maintain and get through all this. Doesn't matter what product you're on, Medicare, ACA, life insurance, doesn't matter what it is. You just have to sustain and work your way through it. A lot of brokers are giving up, and that's the wrong attitude to be in. It's like when me and you were driving in the car the other day, and we were both getting hit up. Hey, do you want to buy this book? And it's like, where have you been the last 8 months? All the other brokers are on top of this. Hey, they're already making moves, and we saw it yesterday. A ton of enrollments.
No, I do not.
Yeah, exactly.
You could pay me to service that, you know?
And I'm like, if you haven't been paying attention this whole time, it probably is time for you to leave the industry, honestly. But I think we'll be fine through this. I expect the subsidies will probably come in midway through open enrollment, and then we'll get through the first block after January 15th. I bet you they announce a special SEP probably around March time, and I'm sure it'll probably be about 30, 45 days where people will have another option to change their plan with the actual pricing on there. I don't see a way around that because there's going to be so many people have to be switched. Just the Aetna block alone that people are going to have to move. Plus, right now, I think there's 300 and something carriers out there. If they don't price in their rate increase and they get it wrong, I think we're going to have that number go back down to the 2021 numbers where we're going to have about 180 carriers around. A lot of the regional carriers, I'm going to tell people, be very careful on what you're enrolling in price-wise. If it's too good to be true that you're seeing on that, be careful going into the following year. We've seen it happen a lot this past year. We, as a company, get hit up by everyone under the sun. Hey, take a contract with us. Give us mass distribution. We vet them like crazy, and we hardly take anyone on. Yes, the big national carriers, everyone has. We like working with them. Now, there's select regional ones that we're like, hey, you guys are doing an awesome job. I was with president of one of those companies. I'm like, dude, I think you guys are way underpriced, and you guys are going to be in trouble. You're going to take on way too much membership and everything. I'm like, have you even looked at what your competition in your state's done? You guys are 20% less than them. So, but then you have big national carriers who are, saying, hey, we really want to grow this year. Oscar, I'm very bullish on Oscar.
Yeah.
We should probably go buy some stock on them. I think they're doing absolutely
It's not financial
awesome.
advice. You have to say that. I'll
They're ready to grow.
Well, I'll say this just in general. I've been buying a lot of stock in a lot of healthcare. And I am optimistic and bullish on the industry in general. I'm also on the ACA and our partners. The thing that makes me not freak out and panic and want to get out of ACA, the carriers are not freaked out and panicked, right? They're ready
Not
to
at
go. They're less panicked now, even with the subsidies and the way things are, than they were a year ago because of all the fraud and the chaos and the unknowns.
They're talking about expansion in 27 with us with new states.
What they don't want is uncertainty and chaos and fraud. Now that even though let's call it the easy money and the easy days aren't flowing like they were, the stable, predictable certainty is what they need, and they're very optimistic on that. And so, yeah, those carrier partners that you mentioned, Oscar, United,
Ambitter's they're pricing themselves to stay number one in the market for good. And you look at where Ambitter, when the market came out, was not number one. They always priced themselves correctly, and they naturally took off in about 2016 and have not come back down because they've always gotten their pricing correct. Yes, they're taking big price increases, but the way that they rolled it out to us, I was like, you know what, this actually makes a lot of sense for you guys, because markets where you were just going to get killed in, you're going to be priced, and sustainably, they're going to be fine. So these big carriers who've always been number one, we preach this all the time, diversify your book of business. Do you diversify your stock portfolio, or do you put all your money in on one stock?
Yeah.
No, everyone diversifies. Diversify the way you put through companies, but companies like Centene, they're going to do great because they're going to get the pricing right. Then you have companies who have an opportunity like Oscar, who doesn't have as much membership, where they can afford to take on a lot more membership. Their price increase isn't going to be nearly as much, but they're going to be fine and sustainable moving forward. So you're going to see blocks of business, I think, flip, and I think you're going to see in that top 5, you're going to see a bunch of different carriers kind of move around with membership, and I think the big 8 carriers are going to end up with more membership than ever from before. I think a lot of these small regional carriers, you're going to see more and more plans leave them, and it's going to go towards those big 8 to 10 carriers.
Yeah, interesting. Well, I think that gives everybody a lot to think about. It'll the next 2 weeks, day by day, everything's very interesting around here. There's just a lot of things going on in the industry. But again, these are why you have the opportunity to really win, right? I mean, these are the times when, if you're an agent that's well positioned and you're understanding the way things are going in these big shifts, is where you can really make big gains. Just to recap, in what we talked about today, you have literally millions of people having to move one way or the other, right? If they end up without some sort of health care, they're going to be needing to go get some sort of short term or things like that. The market's already preparing to have a soft landing for those people or some sort of product to fit those people. And if you're an agent and you're trained, you can support those people.
There's 1 million members out there. If an agent doesn't move them and they get crosswalked to a different plan, they don't have an agent. You have 1 million members that you can go up and pick up business right now.
Yep. People that are, conversely, that are they're not going to qualify for Medicaid going forward are then going to qualify for probably a bronze plan on the ACA. So even though, some of those people, there's just going to be a lot of realignment, guys. And in that realignment, it's a lot of opportunity for orgs that are smartly structured to take advantage of it.
And we've seen it. The last 2 months, we've had record numbers, which this time of year, you should not be seeing that. I mean, we have carriers all over going, what are you doing right now?
Yeah.
Because we're not seeing this out of anyone else. And we've looked into it. Your book is amazing on what you guys are writing. And it's just because there's so many opportunities. You just got to know where to look for them.
So if you don't know, hit us up. Maybe we'll tell you. Join us. That's the sales pitch. Anything else? It'll be interesting to see how things pan out. Hope your AEP is going well. Hope you're prepared for OE. Final thing I'll say, killing it on ancillaries too. So if you guys aren't doing, the ancillary products, the HIPs, the indemnities, the dental, vision, hearings, you're missing out big time, because we're absolutely killing it with that too.
Absolutely. You need to be talking ancillaries, especially during AEP.
Yep. Thanks, guys. Have a great week.
Agent.